Let's look at the now full screen templates. Once again, an important concept to grasp with all of these templates is the use of color to denote the topic. News is the default for red, buzz is going to change your color scheme to orange, and trending is going to change your color scheme to blue. This is more apparent on certain templates than others. You've just seen it on this image one where it's just a slim section on the side, but the ones that have title bars, you'll see how the difference is much more apparent. Trending is going to change it to blue in this instance. Another option on all these full screens is breaking news. Breaking news is a little more dramatic. It changes the entire background to red. So use that sparingly. Once again, that is truly for breaking news. We're going to go back to news, which is the default on all of these. Something to note here that's important is let's look over here on the left-hand side of the screen. You'll see how in each of these titles it will have numbers at the end like 16 by 9, 3 by 3, 4 by 3. That's important to note. Those are the dimensions of the image area for these particular templates. For example, if you call up a template and it has 16 by 9 in the title, and then you put an image in there that is anything less than 16 by 9, there is going to be some empty space on either side. Let's give you an example here. I'm going to search for here's a 16 by 9 image. Let's start with that. I drag that into the image field, and you can see it fills that entire image area. I take an image that's labeled 3 by 3, drag it in there, and watch what happens. You're going to end up with a lot of empty space on the side. Now here's a little trick if you're not aware of this. If you realize that's the image you want and you chose the wrong template, let's go back, find this identical template that's 3 by 3, which is right here. If you hold Control and double click this image on the left, watch what's going to happen. The template is going to come back and it's going to keep that same image you had already selected. So that's a really good trick to use if you ever accidentally select the wrong template. So once again, let's look at this. Here's a 4 by 3 area. If I had filled this with a 3 by 3 image, you're going to see there's going to be some empty space around it. If I choose an image that's labeled 4 by 3 and drag it in there, you're going to see that it's going to fill the screen appropriately. Now one thing you have to be especially careful about, if you drag an image that's too large in, there's just no way this can be avoided. It's going to override all of the boundaries. This isn't an issue so much in an image template, but you can imagine if you're doing a template in which there's text involved and you put an image in there that's too large, that image is going to intrude well into the text area, and then when you type the text, there's a really good chance, as you can see here, that that image is going to actually end up covering the text. Oh, it didn't there. Let's add another bullet. Actually, that time it worked okay. We really got sort of lucky there. But you would see in a lot of instances, if an image is too large, it is going to end up covering that text. So once again, preview is really important. If I hadn't selected preview, we wouldn't have seen those changes take place. So preview, once again, is really important so you can get a true representation of what you're going to see on the screen. So these images, something I wanted to show you as well, is actually we just represented something I wanted to show you here. On these bullets, when you type extra text, it will keep dividing it into additional lines, but 2 is the limit. It's not going to go any further than 2. And here it is, we see an example of how that image is partially covering that text field. The way to correct that would be you'd go back and get a 4 by 3 image, and you would drag it into that image field, and you're going to see that now we're okay. Now we're out of the danger area. Once again, just want to make sure I'm perfectly clear on that. If you've typed up your information and you realize this isn't really news, it should be something like buzz or trending, you just immediately go into here. You would change it to the topic you'd like trending, for this example, and you're seeing it's going to go ahead and change. So a good thing with all of these templates are they are retroactive. If you make a mistake, just recall it and make the change, and all the changes will take effect. Something important to note as well about these images, when you're dealing with the images, these ones we've built, say 3 by 3, 4 by 3, 16 by 9, because the hub created those. When you're creating them on your own, you're not going to be able to tell. They're not going to have those numberings on here. So it's something you're going to have to just get a bit of a feel for by seeing what that image actually looks like. If you're creating an image on your own and you're not pulling it out of Lucy Images, you will have control over how you build that image. For example, let's take this template here that has a 4x3 image. You see how it says 4x3 image down here next to the little camera? And let's go into Axis and create the graphic. We right-click in that box, just like you do for your news graphics, hit Create Axis Graphic. Make sure you type some good, informative text here for what it is you're getting ready to create. And I'll show you why here in a minute. I'm going to give you a bad example, but we'll just type Hub Test Today. Let's hit OK, and it's going to take us into Axis. And it's going to take you, you'll notice, to the exact same screen that it would take you to if you were doing a newscast. Now, don't let that throw you. Don't let that throw you. You are going to be, this graphic is going to work for the now. Let's do instant ingest, which is probably what many of you would be doing in a situation like this. Let me go and grab an image. We'll pull something in. We'll just get a random image to use. Let's say we need a picture of the White House. So the image is going to be ingested into here, and when it comes in, you're going to be able to size and position it. Now notice how it's not filling that entire screen. You're going to want to pull this till it gets to the point where it's, when you move it around, you don't see any extra, any missing blank areas. Okay, so let's get it positioned about how we want it, and this is a key thing to always remember. Always change this to key. This is for, in all uses, newscast, now, everything. Always change it to key before you save it. After you change it to key, you hit Assemble. And then this is going to go and start building the graphic now in the background. As soon as Axis has completed building the background, remember, we're going to hit Deliver. You look down here where the yellow text is. When it says Transfer Complete, you're done. You hit Close. And now let's go back into Lucy. You can see in the image field it now has the name of that graphic we just created. It may take it a moment to build. You can hit Preview to try to move it along. If the internet traffic is heavy during the time of day you're working, it may take quite some time for this graphic to get built. Usually I'd say we're looking at maybe a minute tops. Okay, so there it is. The graphic we created in Axis has now come into the graphic, into the template. Now here's something important to note if you're not familiar with this. If you now go to the Images tab in Lucy, let's do a search. What did we label that? I think we labeled it Hub Test. Let's click on that, and there it is, Hub Test Today. There's the graphic we created. Now this is what's important to note. You see how I give it that terrible title, Hub Test Today? So here's the situation. This graphic is now in Lucy for all of the other producers to use. If you gave it a bad title, such as Hub Test Today, when someone else goes to search for this graphic, they're not going to be able to find it. So make sure when you create the graphic, back when we right-clicked in here and said Create Axis Graphic, that you give it a good title, something that is going to help other producers and yourself find this in the future. Okay, that's a really, really important thing to note in any point in Lucy when you're building. Good labeling is going to save you and your team a lot of work in the long run. Okay, so again, one point I wanted to make sure you're clear on, these images, they're all going to work 4x3, 3x3, 16x9. They're going to work in your Now templates and in your News templates. Now just to give you an example, I'm going to go ahead and call up a full screen template. I've got a log in here from another package, from the news package. Let's grab an election one, for example. And we could take that same image we just created, drag it into there, and you'll see it's going to work just fine. So we've built this whole system where the intention is graphics built in news and graphics built in the now are all going to be interchangeable. So that can save you some time. If there's a big story in one show, you're going to be able to cover it with the same graphics that you had in a prior show and in later shows. Okay, let's have a quick look at monitors. Monitors follow pretty much the same pattern as the full screens. The thing I want you to note about monitors is this. Monitors are built where you can see they fill more of the screen. So let's do this real quick. I want to show you there. So note that image there. Now I'm going to call up a full screen that has an image area. And I don't know if you notice there's considerably more room at the bottom of the screen there. And there's a reason to that. Full screens leave room for a lower third to be on the screen at all times. So by default, on full screens, the images and the text fields are not good. They're going to be smaller. They're going to be a little raised up in the screen. Whereas a monitor, it's in a monitor on the set. It doesn't need to be clear of the lower third. So you can see there's much less room on the bottom of the screen. So it's really important to keep that in mind because you want to make sure on the monitors you're filling that monitor as much as possible. Everything works the same way on monitors as they do on full screens as far as filling in images. Once again, it says here image 4:3, so you want to be shooting for a 4:3 image. You drop it into that little image field and it fills it in. Now these text fields for the now, for monitors, are built to automatically divide into multiple lines. And you can see again on all of these templates, upper, lowercase is the selection on all of them. In those situations in which all uppercase is needed, like in an acronym, you can do that. But if you want things to be upper, lowercase, which is the standard on the now, you're going to be able to do that in all templates. Once again, all the monitor templates have the same features as far as changing them to different topics. We're changing it to breaking news. We're changing it to buzz here. We're going to change it to trending. So don't let that throw you that the default is always red. We just build it by default where the red news is what you're always going to see when you first call the template up. But it can be selected, it can be changed at any time. And once again, notice if you pull a smaller image in there, that image is going to look a little awkward. If you pull an image that's too large into there, it's going to potentially cover your text. So once again, be really, really careful about how you are choosing your images and which images you are using in there. Make sure you always have a good look before you go and save that graphic for on-air playout. Let's real quickly look at splits. So splits is the term we're using now for the boxes. I guess it would help if I went into templates. So splits is the term we're using for live shots. When you call these splits up here, all of these splits are a little different than our news splits in that they're strange shapes. They're parallelograms. So these function a little bit differently as far as your technical crew is concerned. But for all intents and purposes, you are typing the information for the different location bars as you see here, as your options are in the message editor. And once again, you can change what the topic is, and you're going to change the color of the bars. The background stays the same on all of these unless you choose breaking news. If you do breaking news, it's going to change to a red background, and by default, the location bars are going to be red. If it's breaking news, the red bars, locator bars, are always going to turn to red because the assumption is this is not some light buzz or social trending story. This is breaking news. This is news. Your options are to have a 3-box with a large box on the left, 2 smaller ones on the right. There's a what we call a 60-40, larger box on the left, smaller box on the right, what we call a 70-30, an even smaller box on the left, larger box on the right, and then there's the 50-50 split. This one, it previews a little strange because actually the line is the divider line is being generated in the switcher. So when you see this in this on the lower on the split here, you can't really tell exactly where the box resides. Here's something important to note on this one. If you remove your text from any of these fields and hit preview, the text field in which you remove the text will the locator box rather for which you have removed the locator text will disappear. So right now I've removed both of them. At any time I can go back in and type the text in again, hit preview, and when I do that the box is going to rebuild. And once again, these boxes basically resize, reposition, depending on what it is, how much information you type into the screen. So they're going to keep expanding within reason or shrinking within reason until you have exactly what you need. Okay, So once again, that covers pretty much all of our templates here for full screens, for monitors, and for splits. If you have any questions or suggestions, here's my email address, john.felton@scripps.com. Don't hesitate to contact me or any manager here at the Graphics Hub. Make sure you look at our review session for lower thirds and panels. That's going to be really helpful for some of those other key templates that you use on a regular basis.